It's the Wednesday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. A look at the playoff picture, some important notes there. Bill Belichick, where he landed next season, and impact of the teams in the college football playoffs and how that could set up next year and different things that change up in the NFL. All here in the Locked On NFL podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. We are your hosts, Chris Carter and James Rapino of Locked On Steelers and Locked On Bengals. We come to you here in the new year, our first show of the 2024 season. As a reminder, we always can be found on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our daily episodes that come out from all the different hosts on the Locked On NFL podcast, as well as on any of your podcasting apps that you listen to. We're your team every day on all the different teams we cover here in the Locked On NFL Network. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase at Game Time today. James, the playoff picture is not set, and there are still a ton of scenarios right now, but there are a lot of teams that may be feeling like they've at least secured their ticket into the playoffs, who I think could be in a lot of trouble if they don't shape up right now. Some of our guys have talked about them. The Eagles, of course, have been struggling. The Dolphins got whooped up on this weekend. But are there any other teams that you look at that you're kind of suspect right now about them being a bona fide Super Bowl threat, despite their place in the either the AFC or NFC standings?
Yeah, I think the Dolphins are the one that stand out the most as a team that insult to injury. And now you could suddenly fall not only out of the AFC East Championship, but fall to the 5th seed, have a dinged-up Tua Tagovailoa. We'll see on Jalen Waddle. They obviously lost Bradley Chubb for the season, which is just a huge, awful injury. So now you have pass rush questions, one of your weapons is hurt, and your quarterback. It's just it's a lot to overcome. And so we'll see if they can. And, if they beat Buffalo, they still can be, near the top of the AFC and be that 2 seed. Think about that. You could go from a 2 seed to a 5 seed or a 6 seed or 4 seed, excuse me. 4 seed.
No, 6 seed. No, the 6 seed because they would be.
It would be the 6 seed. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Trust my instincts. I need to trust my instincts. The 6 seed. Meanwhile, if you're Buffalo, and I think they are a legitimate Super Bowl contender, even ahead of Miami, but you still have to beat Miami, because if you don't, you could go from being as high as the 2 by winning and beating the Dolphins to as low as being out and on the outside looking in when the playoffs start. So that is such a huge swing game this week.
Is a huge swing game, and I think there's a lot to look at there in the AFC East. The AFC South is another division where about a month ago people might have said the Jaguars were a team to be scared of, and then they went on a terrible losing tear throughout December. They were able to win last week against the Panthers, but they're sitting at 9-7. They're holding on to that 4 seed, but if they lose this weekend, whoever wins the Texans and Titans game, or Texans and Colts game, will be the AFC South champion, and that is a crazy thought to think. If you were to go back just a little bit in time, because everyone thought Trevor Lawrence was turning the corner, and all those other teams. I got another team to question here. What about the Cowboys? Because all eyes are going to be on the way that they beat the Lions, and people are going to say that was fraudulent, and they shouldn't have won that game. But they should have. That was a terrible call. Brad Allen, who's now going to officiate the Steelers-Ravens game. Yay. But
good luck to you.
Yeah, right. But the Cowboys now sit at 11-5. They're holding on to the 2 seed, and because of the precipitous fall of the Eagles, losing 4 out of their 5 games in December, and dropping out of that, they're now the 5 seed, and the Cowboys are the 2 seed. I look at the NFC, and I look, if I'm a contender and I think I can sneak some people, the Cowboys might be that team that I'm looking at to see if I can catch them slipping and move my way up in the playoff race.
Yeah, the Cowboys. Sometimes you just get lucky. That's ridiculous. That officiating, ridiculous, and so they should be the 3 seed right now. They should not, or they wouldn't have been. They would actually, the Eagles would still be. The Eagles would be the 3 seed and in the division
Yeah.
lead. That's what should have happened.
Mm-hmm.
But Dallas got a gift. And so we'll see if they take
big
advantage of it against the Commanders. A huge gift. They had no business. Again, they outplayed the Detroit Lions most of that game, but then they let them off the hook, and the officials saved them. I do wonder what the hell is going on in Philadelphia. And the reason is because I still think if the playoffs started today and the Eagles had to go to Dallas, I don't know if I could pick the Cowboys. And I know how good Dallas is at home. I know they throttled the Eagles when they played there. I get it. But does it really feel like Dallas is going to make that run?
I'm right with you.
At the same time, it doesn't feel like the Eagles are poised to make a run of anything. They lost to the Cardinals. Are you kidding me? The Cardinals? The Cardinals who are thinking about draft position?
Though the Cardinals have also beaten the Cowboys this year as well as the Steelers. The Cardinals have been a team. They've given a lot of teams games. They've
beaten good teams. Yeah.
Right. But to your point, they've fallen apart. This was their division to win, in December, and all they had to do was win one of a stretch of 4 different games, and they lost a bunch of them. You could be looking at a chance for whoever makes that 7 seed to play the Cowboys. If the Cowboys do beat Washington this weekend and they hold on to the 2 seed and everything's like that, you can see the Packers, the Seahawks, the Saints. I think the Vikings technically are kind of in it, but I don't give them much of a chance. But I could see any of those teams sneaking the Cowboys, and then all of a sudden there's an upset special there. I could also see, if the Eagles, if they're standing pat, I think they are locked into the 5 seed as long as the Cowboys win their game. I could see the Buccaneers beating the Eagles at home and making them both one and done. And I think that if you had told people that earlier this season, people wouldn't have believed you. But one thing I look at, the Cowboys have the second weakest strength of victory percentage of all teams in the playoff race right now at 398 or 39.8% is the percentage of the teams that they've beaten in their winning percentage. The Dolphins 35.2 of a winning percentage for their opponents all season long. They're the only team that's really comparable to them that's seriously in the playoff race right now. But I look at that and I think, man, like, the Cowboys, that was a game that they pulled out because of outside factors. I look at them and I still don't see too many wins on their schedule that makes me think, oh yeah, they could walk into the baddest of the bad teams and the baddest, the best of the best teams and knock them off in a tough game.
Yeah, I look at these NFC playoff standings, and I wouldn't want to be the 3 seed. Having to deal with the 6 seed Rams.
Yeah.
If the Rams are still the Rams, like, think about it. You're telling me the Rams can't go into Dallas and win? I'm not going to say they couldn't. If the Cowboys actually lost the way they were supposed to Detroit. The Rams could go to Detroit and win that game. I know it'll be exciting and Ford Field will be popping. I get it. Mm-hmm. But, man, I think this Rams team, because they can score, and they can score in bunches. And a team like the Lions.
That's the revenge game.
I think that's going to happen, and I'm probably going to pick the Rams. We'll see how I feel next week. But I think I like the Rams in that matchup. Who's guarding those weapons? You guard Cooper Kupp, okay? Well, that man named Nakua is about to set the rookie receiving record. The rookie receiving record, going to break Jamar Chase's record. So what a season by the Rams. It might be the biggest surprise of, honestly, any of these teams that are currently in the playoffs today.
We can see a lot of upstarts. I also don't put it past the AFC to be in a similar situation. Like I said, the Dolphins, their strength of victory, it doesn't look too strong right now. They're very similar to the Cowboys. They beat up on a lot of teams that were bad, and then they've lost to teams that were in contention. And whoever makes, if the Dolphins, let's say they do find a way to beat the Bills and they are the 2 seed, if the Dolphins have to face the Colts with the way that they've been playing inspired, the Texans with CJ Stroud, or the Steelers with the way that they've been playing, they put up back-to-back 30-point performances and they still have that defense. I don't give the Dolphins a shoe in to just win at home and then just march through the playoffs right now. They're another team I think that needs to prove some things down the stretch here.
Yeah, they definitely do. I think that's that's one of those teams that you look at it, the way they're kind of limping into the postseason, they could be one and done. And there will be some one and done teams. Will Bill Belichick be done in New England? Will he coach in the NFL next year if it's not in New England? The latest on Bill Belichick coming up.
But first, I want to remind you that this show is sponsored by Game Time. GameTime.co is the website you can go to, or Game Time is an app you can download right to your phone. Either way, you're buying tickets to your favorite events without it being stressful, because Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your favorite sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They give you killer deals on last-minute tickets, and they have a best price guarantee that can't be beat. If you're ever running late to an event and you're thinking, oh, I'll just try to get the best price at the ticket booth, but you think those prices are way too high, or you go to the scalpers on the street and you're thinking, well, I'm not sure if I'm getting scammed. Game Time is the way to beat both. How? You just download the Game Time app right to your phone. You look up the concert or the sporting event that you're about to go to, and you look at it and you say, oh, wow, look at these ticket prices. Not only will you see great prices that beat everyone else's, but you'll also see the view from those seats so that you know you're not getting scammed. It's the best of both worlds, and it gets you the best options every single time. And Game Time is so confident that they're going to give you the best price. They have a best price guarantee where if you find tickets to the same section and row for less somewhere else, Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase, or go to their website, gametime.co. That's terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
All right, Chris, let's dive into Bill Belichick. And obviously, the Patriots, they are right now projected to get the third pick in the 2024 NFL draft. And Belichick and Patriots owner Robert Kraft have yet to meet to discuss the future of the Hall of Fame coach, which will be discussed, I'm sure, very shortly after the season ends. NFL Network reporting that, by the way. But Belichick did discuss exactly what his mindset is going into a Week 18 matchup against the Jets. He said, quote, I'm committed to the team that I'm coaching right now. The players that are here, they deserve my best every day, and that's what I'm going to give them. He also said, each week, you got to get ready for that week. Do your best to help your team win, and after the game, move on to the next one. And that was on WEEI, the Greg Hill show. And he said the end of the season is the end of the season. So Belichick, shocker, trying to keep a one-track mind on the task at hand. And I don't know about you, but at this point, it almost feels like a separation is inevitable. That's how I feel. I do not feel like Bill Belichick will be the head coach of the New England Patriots next season.
I've heard from people that I know that I trust around the Patriots, and they're saying that, Chris, it's basically a foregone conclusion that Belichick will not be part of the picture next year. But the question is, how do the Patriots handle this? Do they try to trade him away and get some compensation for him? Do they just let him go and he just picks a new place? You have to feel that Bill Belichick wants to go to a team that he can win. I mean, Bill Belichick ain't trying to go and rebuild a franchise right now. He's trying to go somewhere where he can win and he can set something up to further establish his reputation as, maybe the greatest coach of all time. I look at that and I look around at teams that are probably going to have that either will have new coaches or probably have new coaches. I think right at the top is everyone looks at is the Chargers. They'll have Justin Herbert. They have a lot of talent on their roster, but they need direction. They need someone to put that team together. And that could be one of the quicker fixer-uppers that Bill Belichick could kind of walk into. But I'm not 100% sure, what other organizations fit that right now of teams that are going to be looking for new head coaches. You have, the Commanders, they're in the situation, but I don't think that anyone looks at Sam Howell and thinks, ooh, yeah, that's the future of the franchise. I also don't think that people are looking at, who did I have at the Raiders like that right now? And I also think that Antonio Pierce could still hang on to that job. There's a chance with the way that he's been coaching. I think it's just going to be interesting to see who wants Bill Belichick at this point, because so many people, and this is something I've talked about with other people like Greg Bedard, who covers the Patriots for the Boston Sports Journal. But when I look at Bill Belichick, he is a different kind of coach than what's being hired. Most coaches that are hired outside of like DeMeco Ryans lately are offensive minded. They're young offensive gurus that want to scheme up, great opportunities for quarterback and to basically coach a great quarterback. That's what they want to do. Belichick is an old an old defensive coach who is a great defensive mind, can coach a whole team, but he's more of a CEO guy, and he's going to need an offensive guy under him who is that genius, who can coach the offense forward and work with the quarterback that way. I'm not sure if a team wants that right now. If it's, especially if it's an older guy, if he was like in his 50s and in his prime, I think maybe that's something. But Bill Belichick, I don't imagine he's going to be coaching for another 10 years. And I think that today you want the coach that can be around for that long, unless you're saying we believe we can win now. And that's why the Chargers, I think everyone looks to them as Belichick's potential future.
Yeah, I think the Chargers would certainly be the favorite. Obviously, they have the vacancy. The Bears, interesting.
Yeah.
If they move on from their head coach, they have the first pick guaranteed. Currently have the 10th pick. So quarterback of the future. We've talked about Justin Fields' future on our Wednesday editions of Locked On NFL. Still think that's up in the air. But to your point, there's not many. There's not many spots. Now, could Monty Ossenfort in Arizona say, I don't necessarily need to keep Gannon if I can get Bill Belichick? Probably not. Probably not. I'm just
that would be the second 1-year coach that they've had in like the last 4 years. That would be crazy.
It would, and I don't think that will happen. I'm just trying to look at unique places. Atlanta doesn't feel right. Minnesota certainly doesn't feel right. I'm just going up and down the standings here to see who it could be, and there really isn't many. I'm going to throw one out there. I'm just looking to make sure I'm not missing any, and I don't think I am. No, I'm not. They're sticking with all those guys. The one
Zach Taylor's not any hot seat, right?
Nah,
I didn't think so. Okay.
Nah. The one that I think, and you're going to be like, what?
Mm-hmm.
If they get the 2 seed, and then the Rams, let's say, or the Rams are the 6 right now. Let's say the Packers. The Packers go into Jerry World, and they
beat up on Mike McCarthy.
Jerry World some love with Jordan Love. And the Cowboys, how about them Cowboys, get eliminated? I'm just saying, there could be a path there where he's like, you know what? This has not worked. We're losing Dan Quinn. Maybe Dan Quinn takes a job elsewhere. Who knows, right? And instead of you promote Dan Quinn or you bring in Bill Belichick. This is the same coach that brought in Bill Parcells now. And that didn't work perfectly, but they did get to the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that would be the super shot in the dark team that no one's talking about that could be on the radar. Obviously, the Chargers are the easy one. The Commanders, people will throw out there. No one's throwing out the Panthers. I think they're too dysfunctional, but I will.
Yeah.
The Bears are weird. The Raiders are interesting, I guess. And then the other one would be the Dallas Cowboys.
Now that's a wild card. That's a great poll right there, James Rapine, because I didn't think about the Cowboys, but if they go one and done, just like we talked about, oh man, I could absolutely see Jared just being like, oh man, we need Q back. He had his great impersonations of Jerry Jones on this show. Hey, Chris. But in all seriousness, the Cowboys would be a very interesting match. That would be such a Jerry Jones move to go get that guy. And I wonder what a Cowboys team coached by Bill Belichick would even look like. Like, that would just be insane. That's a talented defense right now. If they could get healthy next year and they keep adding, I'd be a little scared of that team, because I'd be like, man, Belichick can still keep up a defense.
Yep, and he could still get, I don't know, offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels. Oh my God. Is Tom Brady available? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go through but they certainly could go that route. I would not shock me. That's the thing that I think most people should take into consideration here. There was a very real path for Tom Brady to play for the Dolphins not too long ago. Sean McVay was considering the broadcast booth. Like, Aaron Donald was considering retirement. Like, these guys consider big swings and big things. And so Bill Belichick to Dallas, I would not say 0%. It might not be 10%, but it's not 0%.
I feel you on that. We got to talk about something that is recently happening, and that was the college football playoffs. They were stunning. Monday. I don't know about James. I was up all night watching to the very last pass. It was
East
insane.
Coasters. It was 3 a.m. 3 a.m.
Yeah, that was a rough. It was rough that it was late, but I could not turn away. But the results of those games, both with Michael Penix of Washington and with Jim Harbaugh, when being the great coach for Michigan, getting their teams to the national championship games, the future of could either or both of those guys be big names in the NFL next year. We'll explore that next here on the Locked On NFL podcast.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, and the NFL regular season might be wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action. And whether it's the national championship between Michigan and Washington or every NFL game in Week 18, new customers with FanDuel can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet, win or lose. That's $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you can weigh into same game parlays, different prop bets. They have a parlay hub, so you can find the most popular parlays. So whether it's college football with the national championship game, whether it's the NFL and soon to be the NFL playoffs, get to FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to get $150 in bonus bets when you place a $5 bet. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Like I said, we got to talk about here on the Locked On NFL podcast, Chris Carter, James Rapine, the college football playoffs. It's going to be Michigan versus Washington in the national championship game. First time since 2014, an SEC team has not been in the championship. It feels refreshing to be able to see that. It's very different teams here. But there's two guys that a lot of people are talking about maybe being in the NFL next year. One guy I'm pretty sure will be in the NFL next year, and that's Michael Penix. He played phenomenally in this game. He's played phenomenally this season. He's going to be drafted sometime early in the NFL draft. I don't know how early, and we can talk about that, James. But I want to lead with him. We'll get to Jim Harbaugh and maybe a future for him in the NFL returning after his stint with the Niners. But I want to talk about Penix. James, when you look at Penix, this is a guy who's small. He's not your typical 6'5" build, who's big. He is extremely athletic. He can buy time as well as anybody in college football. Has a laser arm of an arm. He throws a lot of great hard thrown passes that are accurate. He can read the field, but he also has a very long injury history. I think 4 of his 6 years that he played college football, he was knocked out for the season due to injuries. When you look at Penix, where do you see him falling in as far as the importance of needing to get him if you want a franchise quarterback?
He's up there. I think he's in that range of quarterback where you don't want to look at how much it's going to cost to pull the Carolina Panthers and move up and hitch your wagon to the Bryce Young of the world. Yeah. For example, would you take Michael Penix or Bryce Young right now?
I'd still take Bryce. I'm sorry. I think Bryce is in a terrible spot with Carolina.
Sure. And that's fair. I do think it's close. I think the injury history is what scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, that's my big thing.
But a team like the team you covered, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they'll be drafting around 20th, give or take.
Around there.
And I know that's where they took Kenny Pickett, by the way. 20th. Mm-hmm. Could Michael Penix Jr. stand back there at Heinz Field? I know it's something else, but it's Heinz Field to everybody. and throw dots to Deontay Johnson, to Pat Freiermuth over the middle, to George Pickens.
I was going to say his
desperately wants a deep ball. He's just slobbering over the idea of having a quarterback that's going to throw deep balls all the time. Maybe. So I think he's one of those guys that could be in the first round. It'll be back half of the first round. The injury history is certainly huge. The physical part, the NFL Combine will be big for him. But could he be a first rounder? Absolutely. When you see that deep ball, there's going to be some GM that falls in love with that deep ball. And it's all the other stuff that we might not even get information on that worries me. But no, he's a player, man. Texas could not stop him. If that would have went to overtime, Washington would have scored on every possession going into overtime. I think they could have scored way more than 37.
Yeah. I love. Here's the thing. I love Penix as a player. I remember him at Indiana when he was beating Penn State, and Indiana had no business to be hanging with Penn State, and him making. And he was leaning out for the goal line and doing everything in his power. Penix has been a phenomenal player. It's just he's had a really rough injury history, but he's charismatic. He sees the field. He has a cannon of an arm. He reminds me. Michael Irvin said he reminds him of Michael Vick. Irvin, put the drink down. Whatever you was sipping on.
What?
Relax. Exactly. Yeah. He saw a left-handed quarterback and he said, Michael Vick. I think a better comparison is Geno Smith. I think that Penix is elusive. He has a strong arm. And when he's locked in, he is tough. And like the Steelers, they beat Geno Smith, but there were several times Geno Smith did a great job. He saw TJ Watt. Let me get out of the way, get out of his way and fire off this pass, even if it's a throwaway here. I think Penix could do something like that. He's still smaller than Geno, I believe, but I think Penix could be a solid quarterback. He would need a really good offensive line that can give him space to operate, and he would need some talented receivers. That's another thing. I think Odunze is really the super talent on that Washington team that I think will have the best NFL career at wide receiver. I think he needs some playmakers like that. But I think that's where Penix has to go to be the most effective in the NFL, at least moving forward right now. The injuries scare me off a bit too. I would even say some teams might even pass on him and let him go to the second round, much like they did for Geno Smith when he was coming out of West Virginia, just because of that injury history.
Yeah, they certainly could. Obviously, the fifth-year option is always a discussion now, especially with the contracts. But yeah, I think that's a reasonable. I think it would be late day one, early day two.
Yeah,
he doesn't last till day three. Regardless, I think he'll get picked. The production's there. We talked about Bill Belichick, a guy who's been in the game a long, long time, has a chance for his first national championship, continues to dodge questions about his NFL future, is Jim Harbaugh. Feels like Jim Harbaugh wants to go back to the NFL. Don't know it for sure. I think if he was set at Michigan, he would have signed that deal already. Maybe he's holding out for more money. Maybe it's just the ultimate stare down. I think Harbaugh wants back in the league. And obviously he's this entire thing, him beating Alabama, that's huge for him getting back into the league. Where do you think he ends up? And before you answer that, would you take him? Let's say you could have Bill Belichick or Jim Harbaugh. Who would you take as head coach of your franchise?
I take Harbaugh.
Harbaugh's younger.
I take Harbaugh because he's younger. I also feel like Belichick. He's a great coach. I'm not trying to say that he's a better that Jim Harbaugh. If we were talk about primes in their primes, Belichick hands down, no questions asked. But where they are in their careers right now, I think Harbaugh could connect with his players. I think that he could lead a team, and I think that he could bring that energy that you'd want to the franchise. I'm not 100% sure that he does want to go to the NFL. I think he's flirting with the idea because it is in his mind, but he wants the perfect situation. He does not like you look back at the Niners that he inherited. The Niners weren't good, but they had a lot of talent on them. And he was able to say, that's a quick fixer upper. I can turn that into a serious contender. And when he took over for Singletary and Tom Sula, they went from 6-10 to 13-3, and he stayed there for 4 years. And as soon as they started to get bad, I'm out. See ya. I'm out of here. Deuces. And in 4 years, he was gone. And it was really when that crew that he inherited aged out, and he was like, I'm out of here. And then it was Mike Tomsula for a year, and then they bounced around until they found Kyle Shanahan after their third coach from Harbaugh leaving. So I think that what Harbaugh is doing is he is biding his time. Now, again, maybe that Chargers team is a team that he thinks he can be back on the West Coast. He can have a franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert. He can have guys like Derwin James, Keenan Allen, Bosa. He can still have Khalil Mack. There's talent on that Chargers team, but I think he wants the right situation because right now at Michigan, he's made his right situation. And why would I walk away from being basically God at one of the big the big blue schools or blue chip schools and programs in college football when I finally reach the mountaintop here? I might want to be Nick Saban for a little bit. So I think it would have to be a perfect scenario for him to walk away from that.
Yeah, like Caleb Williams and reuniting with a team that I played for in Chicago in a winnable division where the Detroit Lions are considered the favorites with Jared Goff. Talk about win now situations. You think I'm worried about Jordan Love long term? No way. What are they doing? Hey, Justin Jefferson's in Minnesota. Who's throwing it to him? Me, right? And this is Jim Harbaugh talking, not James Rapine. But you get my point is, man, oh man. that Chicago job. He played for the Chargers. He played for Chicago. Chicago's in the easier division, but I think those are the two teams to watch and watch very closely because they have either the quarterback or the assets to get the quarterback and the assets to get weapons. I mean, you could end up with DJ Moore on one side, Adunze on the other, and Caleb Williams throwing him the ball.
That would be insane.
First and 10th pick. You could do that if you're the Bears. And that's what I want to do, is surround my young quarterback with weapons. So,
or would you rather keep Justin Fields, get Marvin Harrison, and then add whatever super playmaker you want at 10? Now
no.
You wouldn't do that. Okay.
I would not. Justin Fields would be a Falcon.
Ooh, I like that.
If I was GM of the Bears, that's what I would call the Falcons. I'm sure they will be interested. If they're not, then they're idiots. Because I like Justin Fields. It's more so about having to pay him, and I want to push that down the line. If he was a rookie again, then I would just, all right, let's roll with it. But and that would be up to Harbaugh. But yeah, I think Harbaugh, NFL bound, it does have to be a good situation. He's not just going to leave. And I get that. But especially if he wins the national title, leave while you're on top. There's nothing better than that, I don't think.
That would be certainly an interesting scene there. We'll talk about that because we'll know who the national champion is the next time that we take the field, just like we'll know who's in the NFL playoffs. Follow along all week long here on the Locked On NFL podcast to get all the updates on all of the NFL here. He's James Rapien. I'm Chris Carter. Thanks so much for tuning in here on the Wednesday episode of the Locked On NFL podcast. See you next week, but stay tuned all week long for all of our hosts right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting app.